Hi there, this is Barton Hammond, and I'm using Meteor Kitchen to build a simple to-do application. If you're interested in Meteor Kitchen, you can go to meteorkitchen.com. In this video, we're going to create the application object, the container of all the components that build up this application, or what the application consists of. On the public page, there's a button that currently goes to the login page. We're going to change that to go to the register page. Then we're going to create the to-dos collection, and we'll add a couple of fields to that collection so we can add data. So let's get started with the designer. I've already logged into the system, and at the home page I can say create new. Now there's different templates of the Meteor Kitchen. The one that we're interested in is the one with the user accounts. Now, the reason I want to do that is because when a user logs in, they should have their own set of to-dos. They should be private to that user and persisted across the different platforms. So we want a user to log in, work on their to-dos, and then be able to log out. So we'll call this to-dos. Excuse me, to-do. We'll save this. What we'll see next is the beginning of the JSON file representation of the project, except that all that JSON noise is filtered out and we're given a nice interface here as we saw before. On our application object, the one thing that we want to notice right now is that it uses Bootstrap for the theme. And better than that, it's using boot swatch so that you can change the theme of the application here at the application level and regenerate your project, and you'll have the new look and feel. For our purposes, we're going to use boot swatch paper. The paper theme uses some of the Google material design specifications to give it a modern look and feel. You'll see the way the mouse interacts with buttons and how the buttons respond. You'll see that is a little different, and that's from the Google material design specification. Now, in the application, we want to next look at the login with password. We want our users to be using a password to log into the system versus, say, forcing them to log in with Google or with a GitHub account using OAuth. So taking these changes, we want to go ahead and save our application. The next thing we want to look at is in that public zone of the application, the pages that the user, anybody can actually look at without having to log in. There's 5 pages. We've seen them already: the public home page, the login, register, forgot password, and reset. On the home page, there's a component called a jumbotron. This jumbotron has some verbiage, which you can see here, and you can stretch this out to work with it. You can change this to your heart's content. This is what is displayed to the user, and below it is this button, and the button says continue, and currently the route for that button is to go to the login page. I think it's better if we change that to the register page, and so you'll notice here that the selection is showing the pages that are defined to this public zone. So we'll check the register page. Let's save our work. So let's see how this application looks. We've made a couple of changes, nothing major, but let's just see how the application works and look at the process that I go through when I develop. What I like to do is open a second tab with the edit source displaying. Now, because it's Meteor, it all stays in sync. Whatever tab I'm on, it's all in sync with the application. So what I do is I download the file, and then I go to my um, command line, and I run my move. And so I move the file, and I ran the generator there. And now over in Meteor, we're going to be picking up the changes. Let's see what we have. Well, let's go to the home page, and here's the continue button. So we click the continue button and it goes to the register page, exactly what we wanted. So back into the application. The next thing we want to do with the collection, or actually we want to create a collection. So we're going to add the new collection, and this is going to be to-dos. Now we have to define the owner field. How are we going to relate? How are we going to identify who the owner is? And in this case, we want to use the word owner ID, and that's owner ID with a capital I. So owner ID. Now, the roles allowed to read and insert and delete whatever, these roles are kind of predefined roles, the ones we're interested in. And notice the only places that I enter this is in the read. The owner should be able to read his own. Leave the insert blank. The owner should be able to update, and the owner should be able to delete. When I put in the owner for the insert, what happened was I was not able to insert because there was no record with the owner in it to allow the insert. I don't know exactly why. But when I took off the owner from the role to insert, then it was able to work. Now as we scroll down, um, we see that this all looks good now. So we want to save the application, or excuse me, the collection. So back at the collection now, we want to add some fields. And so we open that up and we go to the fields, and there's no fields at this point in time. So what we want to do is add the title. This is the title of the to-do. So the name will be title. The title will be title. It's a type string. And the default will be blank. We're going to say it's required. And it is searchable and sortable. We're not going to do exportable on this application because that kind of makes it a little more complex. But if you look at the examples with Meteor Kitchen, you'll see other examples of being able to export your data. But for our purposes, we want the title of the to-do to be searchable and sortable. Down below you have some input options and whatnot, but the one thing that we do want to change here is, well, it's already set. The input for this field is a text, but you have numerous other options, but we're going to be using the text. So now we should be good to go. We should be able to save this, and it says show it in the data view. That's a table. Show it when you do an insert. Show it when you do an update. We will not be doing a read only. We're only doing insert and update. So let's save this. So that's our first field. Now let's add the second one. And this field will be the completed Boolean. The title is completed, and the type is a bool. And the default value here is going to be false. We want it to have a value. We don't want it to be in the document as null. Now, we don't have to put required on there, because if you do required, if you make the field required, then you have to interact with that field to get past the validation. So by saying it's not required, then it'll initialize the default, and the user doesn't have to interact with it when it is inserted. They can just create the title and save it. We also want this to be searchable and sortable, though I believe there's still a bug at this time about being able to search with Boolean fields, but we will be able to do the sortable. The sortable is the column heading can be clicked, and the data will sort appropriately by the column heading. What we want for the input, though, is not a text field. We want the input to be a checkbox that's more akin to a Boolean field. The rest of the fields are fine, just as the title was, that we want to show it in these different forms. So let's save this. Now, so what we've done so far is we've made the collection, we've added a couple fields, and we're ready to see what happens. So let's go ahead and go to the edit source. Let's download it. Let's go back to the command line. Let's move it. Let's go to the generator. You see it restarted. Our application is still here. We go to the register page. Nothing else really has changed, which we would expect. So we're looking good. One thing to do is let's go to the Meteor Mongo bring up Meteor Mongo and show collections, and you'll see that there is no to-dos collection. You can see the users, but there is no to-dos collection at this point. We haven't worked with it. So that completes this video, and what we did was we created the containing JSON object, the application, and we called it to-do. We changed the Jumbotron to continue not to the login page but to the register page. We then made the to-dos collection and we added a couple of fields. We'll continue this in the next video.